Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, chills, desolators, peasants, vassals, vassal sons, peasant sons, bootlicker sons, chill sons. I'm a useful idiot. Today I want to talk about Fukushima. And the media hasn't really covered this very much, and it's been an ongoing tragedy ever since the tsunami and the triple meltdown 3 years ago. This disaster has continued to unfold, and I admit I've only done a couple of videos on it, and it's been under the radar for national media. For me, it's just a matter of my style. I try to do a video on a topic, make it relevant, and then move on. The people that want to talk about single issues, there's plenty of people out there to cover that material, and they do a good job. And so we've seen some highlights over the last couple of years of all this water and air, radiation in the air, radiation being released in the water and the air, and the contamination of that local area. And here in the U.S. and in Japan, of course, one of the ways the government deals with it is they raise the acceptable level of radiation. So that always helps the problem. And but in Fukushima, one of the big problems right now is water, and the just staggering amounts of water that are being used to perpetually pour water over these 3 melted down reactor cores. And then there's 290,000 tons of radioactive water in some 940 tanks as of 2013. So basically they're storing most of this water. Of course, a lot of the radioactive water has been released into the ocean. They have these purifying systems that are supposedly quite efficient, that that water ends up getting poured into the ocean. But a lot is going through the groundwater as well. There's 94,000 tons of water in the floors of these buildings. So the groundwater is mixing with the radioactive water. And water, just by its very nature, and liquids in general, will find a way. And there's a few materials that are impervious to it, so it will get out. But it's really interesting. There's 400 tons of radioactive water produced by the process each day. 400 tons. So over the last 3 years, they've managed to store 290,000 tons thus far. So somebody else can do the math to find out how much they ended up dumping and how much are in these huge tanks. And there's a limit to how many of these storage tanks can be built. Their goal is 700,000 of them. 700,000 tons of storage by 2015. They've got 430,000 now, so they want to double it, but they actually have to clear a forest and more space in the compound in order to create more space for this gigantic installation of radioactive water storage tanks. And there's one little discrepancy, though. They talk about decommissioning will take decades, and yet there was a story that broke a year ago that said that they won't even have the technology to address all these issues for decades. So I suggest that it's probably somewhere more in the vicinity of 50 to 100 years if decommissioning will take decades and they won't have the technology for decades. Another good place for a mathematician to do the math. And of course, as one would suspect, there's already containers that are leaking, and they're going to need to start repairing or replacing even the old tanks by 2016. So as always, it's a race against time that's being lost along the way. And 400 tons of groundwater a day enter through the basement, and that's a staggering amount of water as well. And they can only pump out 100 tons a day, so they can't even keep up with all the water leaking up into the buildings, added on top of all the radioactive water created by pouring over these melted cores. And so their plan is eventually to dump most of it into the sea through these purification water recycling systems they use. But according to TEPCO, the processed water could theoretically be saved. And of course, that's according to TEPCO, who have lied about everything along the way. And after poisoning Japan with radiation, then they got bailed out by the government. So that's how it works. That's how it works in Japan. That's how it works here. So anyway, that would be my warning. Oh, and on top of that, let's not forget that there's 600,000 spent fuel rods there that are also having to be constantly cooled, 600,000. So Fukushima is a continually unfolding disaster, and everyone should keep up on the stories coming out of Fukushima, because it affects all of us, literally and figuratively. And so that's going to be my final warning is if you see a Fukushima bottled water on the market, I would suggest moving back to talking rain. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.